In this part for the report, I'm going to talk about the fleas, the scorpions, and the spiders. The centipede will be their own part. So I'm going to start with the flea. So for all the critters, they have their own managers. So in this case, I have the flea manager. And so for all the managers, they are singletons. So here's the creation for the singleton, the terminate, the pointer instance gets nulled. Um, so for all the managers, they obviously have a spawn function, actually spawn the critter. Um, and then here is to set the variable for the wave system to whether or not they'll spawn. And in this case of the flea, it sets the mushroom count trigger for how many mushrooms in the player area until the flea can spawn. Keeps track of how many fleas are on screen, even though in Centipede only one flea is on screen at a time. And then just have a reset. Then here are the variables for the command sound, or the sound command, a pointer to keep track of the flea that is on screen. And then here are just the variables for the flea count, mushroom count, spawning. Here are the static functions. So the manager, when the manager gets created, uh, it gets the sound command. Uh, when it gets called to spawn a flea, it is given um, the a int and a pointer to a mushroom field. The int is the mushroom count trigger for the flea to determine when it'll spawn, and then mushroom field pointer is pretty obvious. And then it'll check to see if fleas can spawn, if there are no fleas on screen, and then it'll check to see if the mushroom count is low enough, and then it'll send the play command for the sound, and then it'll pick a random column to spawn the flea in. It'll get that position uh, for the column, and then it'll let the factory know. And in the factory, very similar to all the other factories, except when it creates a flea, it actually returns the flea pointer. That way, the manager can keep track of the flea, and it's given the position and the mushroom field. So here in the initialize, oops. So yeah, Flea uh, gets the Flea factory returns the pointer for the Flea, then the Flea count goes up, and then here are just some sets for the different parameters for the Flea manager, so whether or not it can spawn, how many mushrooms it needs, and just reduces the Flea count. And then this is also used where if the Flea dies, it'll stop the sound from playing, and the reset. So if the player dies with the flea on screen, reset for the manager gets called. It'll stop the sound, destroy the flea, reset the variables for the flea count. Then yeah, I already went through the terminate. Go into the actual flea itself. So the flea, it is a game object since I need the collisions and the updates. Um, So right here I have the initialize. It just has three functions: initialize, move, spawn, mushroom. Here its variables, controls its speed, keeps track of what row and column it's in, then its health since it takes 2 hits to die. Um, it gets, oh sorry, it's the flea factory. So here, so with this, I know there are some magic numbers in the set origin, but I used them because the flea sprite in the .png file, it's not centered, so I just basically just kept trial and error just to adjust the flea to actually get it in the middle of the cell. So this is why I have a magic number of 7 right here. Um, so let's see what else. So yeah, so in the update, it'll just update the sprite. It'll call the move function, and then the move function, let's go right here. It'll adjust its Y value. It'll set the position, and then it'll update its current row, and then it'll check to see if its current row is equal to the next row that it could reach. And if they're equal, it'll check to see if it'll try to spawn a mushroom. That way it's not constantly trying to spawn a mushroom multiple times in each cell, and it'll just check once in each cell. So go back to the update. So yeah. So other than the move, it just checks to see. It also checks to see when the flea goes off screen, it'll die. Um, and if there aren't enough mushrooms in the player area, the flea will keep respawning until there are enough mushrooms. So then I just have draw, destroy. When it collides with a blaster, it'll create an explosion with the bullet. Um, so since the flea takes 2 hits, it will check to see if its health is at 0 or not. If it's not at 0, it'll increase its speed. If it is at 0, it'll get destroyed, and it'll still call spawn flea, but it'll check to see if it should spawn a flea or not. And then the score manager gets sent the command, explosion gets created. So here in the initialize from the factory. So yeah, so the factory gets the initialized position, the mushroom field, and the score command. It gets set the score command. It gets given the mushroom field. It'll set its column, its current row, and then its next row. And since it's always going down, it'll always be +1 than the row it's currently at. It sets position, the speed, resets its health. Let's see. And then for when the flea wants to spawn a mushroom, let's see. Yeah. So the flea wants to spawn a mushroom. It checks to see if its health is at max. If it is, it'll check to see if the cell that it's in on the grid has a mushroom or not. And if it doesn't, there is a percent chance that it'll summon that mushroom. And right here I just have a random, and it goes so 80% chance to spawn a mushroom. Or sorry, that's not 80%. It's about, should be 20%. Yeah, 20% chance to spawn a mushroom, and it'll place the mushroom in the appropriate spot on the mushroom field. Okay, so that would be it for the flea. Move on to the scorpion. So again, Scorpion Manager has, or Scorpion has its own manager. It's very similar to the Flea. It just sets the different parameters and can spawn the Scorpion. Except with the Scorpion, it has a frequency at how much it spawns, and I did make the manager game object so I could get the alarm. And so for spawn Scorpion, Scorpion Factory will return the pointer for a Scorpion, and the Scorpion Factory also has the death, the score command and the sound command. So when the let's see, so yeah, right here for the spawn Scorpion, it'll get a random row, and it'll also get a random yeah, so yeah, it'll get a random row and then determine whether it'll spawn on the left or the right. And so, and then the Scorpion pointer gets given a Scorpion. Scorpion count goes up. And then here's just the setting the parameters. And then the reset similar to the Flea reset. And then with the alarm, actually I'll show, where's the update? Or sorry, where'd it go? Oh, I'm losing it. Okay, so yeah, so here for the Scorpion frequency, when that gets set, it gets the alarm gets set to that frequency, and then when that alarm gets called is when a Scorpion is spawned. And then right here, when the Scorpion collides with a mushroom, it'll call the Scorpion Manager to let it know. Then the Scorpion Manager will get the current field and call the poison mushroom function for that field, and then it'll determine whether or not if there's a mushroom to poison. So I'll go to the scorpion. So here's the scorpion class. It's a game object as well. Uh, got collision, so just got initialize and move. The variables are there's nothing too special about those. So in the update, I just have it to where update sprite and then it moves for the move function. Let's see where is it? Right here. It'll depending on whether it spawns on the left side or the right side of the screen, um, it'll this will determine whether or not that just make sure it moves in the right direction. It'll update the column that it's in, and if the column that it's in is equal to the next column, it'll try to poison the mushroom in that column if there is a mushroom, and then it'll set the next column to the right value. And for the so yeah, that's for the move. And then it just checks if it goes off screen, destroys it, reduces the count on the scorpion. So let's see, for the collision, it's pretty simple. It'll send the score command, uh, create an explosion. For the initialize, this is where it determines whether it spawns on the left side of the screen or the right side. This is what this direction float variable will do. Um, so the direction float variable, if it is spawns on the left side of the screen, it gets set to -1, and that will affect its x value. So if it spawns on the left, its x value will go increase. If it spawns on the right, it has to move left, so its x value needs to decrease, and the direct float gets set here to do that. And then right here, resets the scale for the scorpion after recycling. So the scorpion needs to face in a specific direction depending on if it's going left or right, and this makes sure it fixes that. And let's see, maybe that's it for the mush or the scorpion. Yep. Okay. Then I'll go into the flea or the spider. So here's a spider manager. It's also a singleton game object because I need the alarms. And it has the different parameters reset. And then here's just the static functions. So when it spawns a spider, it gets a position. Um, the spider factory will send the pointer, and then the spider manager will get it. Adjust the count for the spiders. These are just the sets for the variables, determine different properties of the spiders, or if it'll spawn at all. Just reducing it. When it gets reset, destroys a spider on screen. Calls a spider factory as well. So it'll actually stop playing the sound because the spider factory actually determines that. So yeah, it'll send the stop command for the sound so the sound doesn't keep playing. And then here are the score commands depending on if it's close, medium distance, or far. And okay, so then here's the alarm to determine when it'll spawn. So for the frequency, yeah, right here, sets the alarm to the frequency. It's very similar to the scorpion and pretty much functions the exact same way. Go into the spider class itself. So here's the spider class. It's very similar to the scorpion. I have an alarm for it for its movement. It's just got to initialize, move up, down, uh, forward, up, forward, down. It's just the diagonals. Okay. And so when the spider gets created, it sets its alarm for this is for its movement. In the update, it'll update its sprite. Just gets an offset, and then it'll randomly pick a direction to move. Uh, and then it'll set its position. I was I could have made the spider into used a finite state machine, but I did not have time for that, so I just had to stick with this. Uh, so other than that, the row of the spider updates its current row. If it goes off screen, it'll die. But if it does manage to go off screen, it'll respawn immediately. Then here's the alarm for its movement. When this gets called, it'll get a random number from 0 to 3 and set that to random move, and random move is an int. And then that gets used in the update to see what direction it'll end up moving. Then just some collisions. Let's see. When it collides with a bullet, it'll it'll calculate the distance between the spider and the original position of the bullet, and the original position of the bullet is the position of the blaster from when it was fired. Then once it gets that distance, it'll go into this if else and determine whether it was close, medium, or far, and then it'll send the appropriate score command. And here it's so in this case, if it's 2 cells or 2 cells away or closer, it'll send the close command. 4 cells, if it's 4 cells away, send the medium, and if it's anything further, it'll send the far. And it'll just create explosion. So here's the initialize for the spider. I just set the random move to 3, so that would mean it goes forward down. It's always moving down when it first spawns. Let's see, where'd it go? Okay, right here. And then it determines whether or not if it's on the left side or right side of the screen. Similar to the scorpion, it will change the direction float to reflect that. Um, it gets its current row and column. There's really nothing special. It just sets the appropriate values to the pointers. Sets the speed. So here's for its actual movement. So this is the part where I could have used the finite state machine better. So it checks to see if it hits the its top border, and if it does, it'll move down, and its random move will become uh, the value that'll give it move down. Just so it kind of just bounces off the player area borders. And then the same thing, we'll move down and check to see if it reaches the bottom, then it'll go up. Um, and then if it moves forward up or diagonally up, it'll still check to see if it hits the borders. Same thing with forward down. And that is it for the critters, except the centipede. The centipede will be next.